You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I've got to start by recapping Game 1 of the World Series. Started out really exciting. Very easy to get into. Then it kinda died down, but the result of the game is something that everyone outside of the state of Texas could get behind. The Braves winning 6-2. They are 3 wins away from their first World Series since 1995. What did I tell you that I was concerned about with this Astros team? Their starting pitching. I understand that Framber Valdez was fantastic against the Red Sox in Game 5. But other than that, he has been useless in these playoffs. He's made 4 starts. So let's look at the other 3. Game 2 against the White Sox, he pitches 4 1/3 innings, gives up 4 runs. Game 1 against the Red Sox, he pitches 4 1/3 innings, gives up 4 runs. In Game 1 of the World Series in Houston, very important to get off to a strong start, Valdez doesn't even make it past 2 innings. He gave up 5 runs. He did his best Garrett Cole impression. I'm not talking about Astros Garrett Cole. I'm talking about Yankees Garrett Cole in the wild card game. This guy is starting Game 1 of the World Series, and that's the performance he puts out? That was a terrible job by Valdez. Absolutely dreadful. I mean, think about the open to that game. At the very least, get through the top of the first with the score still at 0. Give your team a chance. Don't automatically have them behind the 8 ball. Instead, the first at-bat of the game results in a home run. First time that's ever happened in World Series history. Then an excellent play by Altuve results in Freddie Freeman grounding out. Ozzie Albies hit an infield single, then he stole second, so everyone in America gets a free taco. Then Austin Riley hits the RBI double. So 4 batters into the game, the Astros are down 2-0. Now give Charlie Morton a ton of credit. He got into some trouble in the bottom of the first. Had the bases loaded, 2 men out for Kyle Tucker. But Tucker couldn't get the big hit. The Braves manufacture another run. Made it 3-0 after 2. Adam Duvall hit a home run in the top of the third. 5-0 Braves. Right then and there, you had the sense that everything was just going to go swimmingly for the Braves. But then something really sad happened. In the bottom of the second, Yuli Gurriel hit a comebacker that hit Morton on the right fibula. It ended up fracturing his right fibula. Nothing seemed amiss until Morton struck out Altuve. Then you saw him kind of wince. He limped off the mound. A.J. Minter came in. And you thought to yourself, okay, this is the Astros' chance. If they're going to come back in this game, it's got to be now. They had something cooking in the bottom of the fourth. Runners on the corners, one man out. Dansby Swanson commits an error, allows Kyle Tucker to score. So it's again, runners on the corners, one man out, Martin Maldonado at bat. I understand that Martin Maldonado isn't exactly Ivan Rodriguez with the bat, but still, you had the sense that Swanson error could have been huge. It could have been a double play. Instead, it extends the inning. What does Maldonado do? He strikes out. What does Jose Altuve do? He pops out to A.J. Minter. Give Minter a ton of credit for coming in to replace Morton. There is no chance on this earth that he expected that he would need to come in after 2 1/3 innings. He comes in, pitches more innings than Morton, 2 2/3, only gives up 1 run, throws a career high in pitches, 43, 1 less than Morton. He threw 44. He gave the Braves incredibly valuable outs. He got the Braves to the bottom of the 6th, with them still holding a 5-1 lead. He enabled Snitker to go to his 3 big guns, Luke Jackson, Tyler Matzek, and Will Smith for 12 outs. Jackson did his job. Matzek sorta kinda did his job. He gave up a run, but it was 6-2 at that point. You had a sense that the Braves would win that game pretty easily. Will Smith comes in, shuts the door. Like I said, the Braves are now 3 wins away from their first World Series since 1995. Although I'll say this. What was the biggest edge that the Braves had on the Astros headed into this World Series? Starting pitching. No question about that. You had Charlie Morton lined up to start either 2 or 3 games in this series. Worst comes to worst, he's a reliever in Game 7. This guy is a great playoff performer. We know this. Now he breaks his right fibula, so we're not going to see him until spring training? I mean, that's devastating for the Braves. No word yet on who's going to replace Morton on the postseason roster. But I can promise you that he's not as good as Morton. And I can promise you that whoever's now going to start Game 4 or Game 5 for the Braves isn't going to be as dominant as Morton. The Braves are in a little bit of trouble right now. They won the battle. There's no question. But this Morton injury changes the whole tone of this series. The Braves need either Max Fried or Ian Anderson to really step up. Fried's going to start tonight. Anderson's going to start on Friday. If the Braves aren't up at least 2-1 in this series after 3 games, it's going to be really tough for them to beat this Astros team. Because realize, how did they get past the Dodgers? With a bullpen game. One bullpen game. In Game 4, a Braves win, Jesse Chavez started, only went an inning. Drew Smyly was the bulk guy. He pitched 3 1/3. They did that once. It worked once. I didn't think it would, but it worked once. It's not going to work twice. You're just pushing it too much. I'm skeptical of bullpen games in the playoffs. I've seen them work, but I don't think you can do it a ton. Maybe the better way of phrasing it, instead of saying that openers don't work in the playoffs, or bullpen games don't work in the playoffs, wherever you want to phrase it, is using openers and or bullpen games in excess don't work in the playoffs. And I think that having games 4 and 5 potentially be bullpen games would count as being in excess. I mean, it's tough for the Braves right now. It's really, really tough. I think the best thing to do would be to start Smyly in Game 4. See if you can get 3 to 4 innings out of him. Then turn it over to the bullpen. Then Game 5, I'd start Minter. Maybe you can get 2 innings out of him. I mean, it's tough right now. The Braves only have 2 starters that they really trust. It's clear they don't trust Smyly. The guy's only pitched in 1 game in this postseason. I wonder, would they try to start Kyle Wright? Would they try to make that work? I mean, Wright's on the World Series roster. Hasn't pitched since June 23rd, though, in the majors. I'm not kidding. He went 2 innings against the Mets. He started that game, gave up 5 runs. He ended up getting the loss in a 7-3 win for the Amazons. Do you bring him in to give you some length? Do you do the unthinkable and start him? Do you start Minter in Game 5 and then go to Wright? Go lefty-righty? It's tough right now for Brian Snitker. It just got a lot harder for him. What's the saying? Man plans, God laughs? Snitker had a great plan. Charlie Morton starts Game 1. Max Fried starts Game 2. And Ian Anderson starts Game 3. Game 4, I'll go the bullpen route. That worked for me against the Dodgers. I'll do it again. I would personally start Smyly, but if Snitker wanted to go the bullpen route, I couldn't blame him. Then you have Morton in Game 5, Fried in Game 6, Anderson in Game 7. Great plan. Better than the Astros starters. Now, it's going to be really tough for Snitker to make these puzzle pieces work. If he doesn't get good outings from Fried and/or Anderson, it's impossible for me to envision the Braves winning this World Series. Also, there is another thing. That game yesterday took 4 hours and 6 minutes. There were a total of 8 runs. It didn't go into extras. It was a 9-inning, 4-hour game. I understand that there were 20 total hits. I understand that there were 9 total pitching changes. But that's no excuse for a 4-hour baseball game. You're starting these games at 8. Alright, you want to make it so everyone in the country has a chance to watch the game. I get that. Totally get that. Fair logic. But if you're going to do that, you have to make it so the games aren't going to finish at midnight on the East Coast. I don't know how you fix it. A pitch clock, less commercials. Maybe you consider starting the games earlier. I mean, look, if the game starts at 7, it's over at 11 on the East Coast. That's not bad. That gives you about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Assuming you're hitting the hay right after the game. You don't have any work to do. You don't want to watch anything else. That gives you 7 to 8 hours. Midnight, you have 6 to 7. That's not going to work. Look, I'll say this. If the game had started at 7, I wouldn't be complaining about the length. But since the game starts at 8, and that last out was made technically today, I have an issue with that. I have an issue with Braves fans needing to stay up past midnight to watch their team win a World Series game. Something's got to be done about that. If the game is over at 11, 11:30, no issue. Midnight? That doesn't work for me. If the game goes into extra innings, and you don't have the ghost runner, okay, I understand that would take a while. But a 6-2 game, a 9-inning game, that game shouldn't have taken 4 hours. But now it's time to preview tonight's game. Like I said, we have Max Fried going for the Braves, and Jose Urquidy is pitching for the Astros. Overall, Fried has been good in these playoffs. I understand that he got shellacked in Game 5 against the Dodgers. There's no question about that. But in Game 2 against the Brewers, he was sensational. And in Game 1 against the Dodgers, he was sensational. I like Fried. Really good pitcher. One of the most underrated pitchers in the game. The guy went undefeated last year. Wasn't even a Cy Young finalist. This year, he doesn't deserve to be a Cy Young finalist, but the pandemic-shortened season, when he went 7-0, yeah, he needed to be a Cy Young finalist. He mainly throws 4 pitches. Fastball, curveball, slider, sinker. His fastball is weird. He'll throw it up in the zone or inside to righties away from lefties. The thing is, though, when that fastball catches that corner, it can get crushed. What's weird is, though, if he throws it in on lefties and away from righties, it's lethal. It's a lethal pitch. It's just strange. It's one of the stranger fastballs you'll see in the majors. It works. Obviously. It's just weird. And the other thing that's weird about Fried is most pitchers with their off-speed pitches will favor one off-speed pitch against righties and another one against lefties. Fried will bury his curve and his slider with equal regularity against righties and lefties. He has a sinker that runs in on lefties. He mixes up his stuff really well. That's what makes Fried so dominant. He's not the fastest thrower in the world. I'm not saying he doesn't get good velocity on his pitches. He does. Mid-90s fastball, mid-80s slider, mid-70s curve. But what makes Fried great is his ability to locate, his ability to mix up his pitches, and his unpredictability. The opposing hitter never knows what pitch Fried's going to throw. Now, Urquidy's a little more traditional, primarily a fastball pitcher. He likes to throw that high. He throws his slider a lot, but he's been getting burned on the slider recently, I've noticed. He hasn't been able to get that full break. He's only been getting like a little break, or sometimes it just hangs. And when it hangs, watch out. That ball's getting tattooed. Urquidy pitched Game 3 of the ALCS against the Red Sox. He pitched just 1 2/3, gave up 5 runs. Part of that was because the slider just wasn't working. And that's a pitch that he throws a lot against righties. Against lefties, it's his changeup. His curveball a little bit, but mainly the changeup. The changeup is lethal. I want him to throw the changeup more. He gets great break on it. I've seen him throw hanging changeups. Like changeups that have started out high, but have dipped into the middle of the zone, that don't fall below the knees, and hitters just stand there. You watch it on TV and you go, how did he just stand there? Why does he look like a statue? That pitch was right down Broadway. Well, he sets up his changeup really well with his high fastball. So instead of chasing a high fastball, I'm just going to take it for a ball. Then you see it dip, and you have no chance at hitting it. His changeup is probably his best pitch. He needs to throw it more. All in all, I don't see how the Astros lose the first 2 games in Houston. I'm rooting for the Braves hard. I'm doing the tomahawk chop. I'm doing the chant. Nothing ticked me off more than seeing that loud foul ball. And then the Astros fan put up the sign that said, the Braves are racist, or whatever it said. Who the hell are you as an Astros fan to claim the moral high ground? You're a freaking Astros fan. Do I need to say any more than that? For you to try to claim the moral high ground is laughable. That ticked me off more than needing to go to bed at midnight for a 9-inning game. Sadly, I have to pick the Astros tonight. But I really hope I'm wrong. Moving on now to the Marlins, extending Miguel Rojas through 2023. He triggered a vesting option for the 2022 season, which will pay him $5.5 million. In 2023, he's now going to get $4.5 million. So Rojas is signed with the Marlins through the next 2 years at a grand total of $10 million. And this is a good move for the Marlins. I like Rojas. Just a good contact hitter. He's a traditional shortstop. Traditionally, shortstops weren't bred for power. They were guys who'd hit for a solid average, play good defense, and that was about it. That's Rojas. Really good defender. He's good with his legs, too. He stole 13 bags this year. That's a career high. He hit .265 with 9 home runs and 48 RBIs. He's a solid player. He's not why the Marlins are bad. Maybe he won't be around for their next World Series winner because he's currently 32. But he's a good player, does his job every day, good defender, good runner, smart player, hits for a solid average. He's actually one of the few offensive bright spots on the Marlins. Like, it's weird. Most bad teams have a solid offense, or an offense that would be good enough to win them some games if they had good pitching. The Marlins are the other way around. They have really good pitching. Sandy Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, Pablo Lopez, and Zach Thompson are 4 really good young pitchers. And their bullpen is really good, with Dylan Floro, Anthony Bass, Anthony Bender, Richard Blyer, and Zach Pop. The thing is, though, their offense is just atrocious. They have the infield. From first to third, Jesus Aguilar, Jazz Chisholm, Miguel Rojas, and Brian Anderson. That's fine. No issue with that. Anderson got hurt this year, but he's a good third baseman. I like him. But I don't know what I'm getting from that outfield. Can I really trust Garrett Cooper? Can I really trust Brian De La Cruz? Can I really trust Jesus Sanchez? And Jorge Alfaro's a bust. I mean, his ship has sailed. He's not that good. I'm giving up on him. Really bad defender. I just don't like him. So it's weird. You have half the lineup, the other half just isn't getting the job done. I mean, in order to win baseball games, you've got to string hits together. Alright, the first 4 guys did their job. What are the next 4 guys doing? If they're all making out, you're not going to win too much. The Marlins have some good pieces. They're closer to making noise than you think they are. They just need to fortify their outfield and add a really good catcher. I could see them making a big run at Yan Gomes. He would fit them perfectly. Wouldn't cost a ton of money. Would give you solid production. Would be good defensively. Yeah, I understand he's not a marquee name, But I really think Gomes would make a ton of sense for the Marlins. Alright, now I'll give you some NHL Valk talk. Specifically on my beloved Islanders making an incredibly confusing move. They signed Ross Johnston to a 4-year extension worth $4.4 million. If you'll recall, this is actually the last year of a 4-year contract that Johnston signed in 2018. And it really didn't make a ton of sense to me. The AAV was fair. He signed a 4-year deal worth $4 million. So $1 million per year for a guy who was coming off a year where he put up 6 points in 24 games and obviously showed what he could do on a physical level. I understood wanting to keep him around. And he was young, too. He was 24 at the time of that contract. The fit concerned me, because the Islanders had just reacquired Matt Martin, and I didn't like the 4 years, but it was hard to get really upset about that contract. Now, I'm just incredibly confused. See, what you liked about Johnston early in his career is that, yes, he had a great physical game. He's the kind of guy who you want backing you up in a bar fight. But he could also get on the score sheet. In 17-18, he put up 6 points in 24 games. In 18-19, he put up 4 points in 17 games. Hey, I'll take that. The guy's not playing a lot, but he's showing some scoring ability. I mean, there was a game that Barry Trotz put Ross Johnston on the first line with Matthew Barzal. That was doomed to fail. That was never going to work. But Johnston actually showed some scoring competency once upon a time. Now that has completely disappeared. In the last 3 seasons, so 1920, 2021, and this year, he only has 5 points in 45 games. He's not even getting into the lineup. Like, that's the thing. He's a healthy scratch most games. He played the first game of the year because Matt Martin was a little banged up. So yeah, put Ross Johnston on the 4th line. That makes perfect sense. You know what Johnston's ice time was in that game? 5 minutes and 50 seconds. That's it. Just under 6 minutes. To put that into perspective, his line mates were Casey Cizikas and Cal Clutterbuck. Cizikas played 11 minutes and 45 seconds that night, and Clutterbuck played 12 minutes and 21 seconds that night. So if you doubled Johnston's ice time that night, it wouldn't even eclipse Cizikas. And realize something. That game was a blowout. The Islanders lost 6-3. They were dreadful in that game. I mean, that's the game that keeps sending out Johnston. Save your big guns. Save a guy like Barzell or Lee or Palmieri or Bailey or Nelson or Beauvillier, etc., etc. Instead, Johnston only plays 5 minutes and 50 seconds. It's clear as day that Barry Trotz doesn't like Ross Johnston. So why is Lou Lamoriello trying to force feed him to Trotz? I just don't get it. I understand that it's hard to get too upset at a contract that's only going to pay someone $1.1 million. But the Islanders aren't in a great cap position. Counting this contract, according to Puckpedia.com, the Islanders have $13,755,833 in cap space to play with next year. But realize, Noah Dobson's a free agent. You're going to have to give him his big boy contract. I don't care if he's an RFA, he's still going to get a big contract. Zach Parise's a free agent, so you're going to need to find a new third-line left winger. Zdeno Chara and Andy Green are free agents, so you're going to need to find a couple more defensemen. Every dollar counts for the Islanders. I just don't get it. I don't understand why they wanted to lock Johnston up like this. I understand that Lou Lamoriello is beyond reproach, and I'm not slamming my fist on the table saying that this is a terrible move. I'm just confused by it. I think I speak for a lot of Islanders fans when I say that this is a confusing move. There was a death in the sports world that I really want to talk about, and that is the death of Mike Lucci, who died yesterday at the age of 81. It's okay if you don't know the name Mike Lucci. He's not a household name. I totally get that. And when you think about the best linebackers in football from the early 60s to the mid-70s, you think of guys like Nick Buoniconti, Bobby Bell, Ray Nitschke, Larry Grantham, Dick Butkus, Dave Robinson, Chuck Howley. It would take you a long time to get to Mike Lucci. But he should be in the conversation. I'm not saying he should be ahead of those guys, but he should at least be in the mix. Because Lucci was a really good player. He was drafted in the 5th round of the 1961 NFL Draft by the Browns out of Tennessee. And Lucci didn't have a bad rookie season, but after the 1962 season, Paul Brown left the Browns. He was replaced by Blanton Collier. Collier decided to roll with Jim Houston over Lucci. I'm not saying that was the wrong decision, because Jim Houston was a really good linebacker, but that's how Lucci lost his spot with the Browns. He was a backup, though, on their 1964 team, where they shut out the Colts 27-0 in the NFL championship game. That offseason, the Lions, Browns, and Giants engineered a 3-team trade. Lucci went from the Browns to the Giants for Eric Barnes, one of the best defensive backs of the 1960s. The Giants then flipped Lucci along with Darryl Dess, who was a good offensive lineman in the early 60s, to the Lions for Earl Morrall. That's how Morrall got to the Giants, because of a 3-team trade involving some other really good players. It took Lucci a little bit to find his footing with the Lions, but in 1966, he started a streak of starting every game that he played in that lasted until 1973. And that's when Lucci really thrived. He was a really tough player, constantly played through injuries, very good at dropping back into coverage. In 1969, he made the All-NFL team, along with being named the Lions' defensive MVP by his teammates. The year after that, he was named to the NFC's All-Conference team. Again, was named Lions defensive MVP. The year after that was his best season. He made his only Pro Bowl, again was named to the NFC's All-Conference team, and was named Lions defensive MVP. He had 5 interceptions that year, 2 of which went for touchdowns. In 72 and 73, Lucci was named to the NFC's All-Conference team again. He retired after the 73 season. Got into broadcasting for a little bit. But the more interesting thing, and I didn't know this, thank you Wikipedia, Lucci was actually a former president of Bally's Fitness. How do you like that? Shades of Mark Mosley. Mark Mosley, former kicker in the NFL, won MVP in the strike-shortened 82 season, went on to be a big part of Five Guys. Mike Lucci went on to be a big part of Bally's. But Lucci was a really good linebacker, played through pain, very tough player. May he rest in peace. Before I let you go, I will give you some breaking news. The Braves announced that Tucker Davidson will replace Charlie Morton on the World Series roster. He's a lefty starter. He gives Brian Snitker another option to give him some length, even though he hasn't pitched in the majors since June 15th, when he got shellacked by the Red Sox. In 2 1/3 innings, he gave up 5 runs. But he's another lefty to add to the pen. Snitker loves his lefties, and he can go multiple innings. I can't get mad at this decision. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, If you disagree with me, you're wrong.